Whatever goal someone has in their business or life can be accomplished with a podcast. For instance, professional development, referral, strategic partners, developing relationships, profile current clients, past clients. It's good for potential clients. And it's good for content, SEO, and all that for a business as well. I would do it if no one listened from a professional development reason alone. For instance, if I'm trying to learn about sales or negotiation, I can go out and learn that, but I could also have the top negotiators in the world on my podcast and ask them what questions I want.
Welcome to Liberty Spenders. Today, we are super excited to welcome Dr. Jeremy Weisz. Since 2008, Jeremy has been interviewing top entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs of companies like Pixar, P90X, Atari, Zapier, Einstein Bagels, Mattel, Kettle Chips, RXBARs, and Big League Chew, the Orlando Magic, and many more. You can find these stories on inspiredinsider.com, which is his podcast and is shared with his audience of over 225,000 followers and subscribers. He's also the co-founder of Rise 25, where they help B2B businesses launch and run podcasts that connect them directly to their Dream 200 ideal clients and partners, handling almost everything. So you get real ROI with minimal effort. They make podcasting the easy button for growth. And I don't know that I shared this with you, Dr. Jeremy, when we were on your podcast, but you're probably the first person I ever saw talk about podcasting as a business tool when you partnered and did some kind of co-branded training with Tony Robbins.
That's true. Yeah.
Who I'm a giant fan of. So it's a privilege to have you on.
Well, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
The idea that a normal business person who's not a celebrity could create a podcast and get people like the founder of Pixar and Atari and Orlando Magic on your show seems almost impossible. How did that happen? How do you get such high-profile guests? What's the strategy behind it?
So, Kurt, that's the interesting part is I never worked for a big company. You know, my background's in biochemistry as a chiropractor, right? So I zero connections in the business world. It's not like I went to like some fancy business school or anything like that. So I didn't have any connections, right? And so the question I always get is, well, how'd you get the co-founder of Pixar on? How'd you get this person? And, you know, it's interesting. I mean, you'll appreciate this. But one, I mean, I don't start with those people, right? I mean, I start with my network of people, right? And then I get introductions from them. And those people, you know, I get introductions to those people's connections. But the way I look at a podcast, the way I look at anything is really how do I deliver value to someone else? Okay. And so, for instance, I had a guest on my podcast and like, we'll talk about books because I geek out on books. And I was just asking about some of his favorite books of all time. And he mentioned a leadership book by the CEO of WD-40. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, oh, cool. That sounds like a great book. Immediately, like while he's talking, you know, I was busted, Kurt, but while he was talking, I was on Audible and I bought it by the time the interview was done. And so I bought it, listened to halfway through, messaged the person on LinkedIn. I don't know him. I don't have any connection to him. My guest didn't have any connection to him either. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I just messaged him on LinkedIn. I'm like, hey, I just bought your book. It's great. My guest actually mentioned you on the show. That's how I heard about it. Hope you're doing well. That's it. Mm-hmm. I wasn't asking for anything. And you're a master email copywriter too. So like there was no goal there. I mean, obviously in any email exchange, the goal is just to get a response. Right. And right. I wasn't asking for a commitment of any sort. Right. I was just like, hey, I love your book. And I don't care if someone's, you know, up to a billionaire for some reason. Like if you buy their book that they spend their life's work like pouring into, I spent like $20 on, they appreciate it. Right. And so I sent that email sent the message through LinkedIn. I get a response 10 minutes later. Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate it. Cool. I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking, okay, will he be a good guest on my show, you know, from a leadership perspective? So I said, hey, I'd love to feature you on my podcast. I didn't stop there, right? Because if we're talking about copywriting 101, you have to provide some social proof because like, who is this person? Now, if you don't have social proof of like past guests, you have social proof of years in the industry, maybe people someone's worked with. Now I happen to have had social proof on guests. So I said, hey, I'd love to feature you. By the way, I have this number of LinkedIn followers, like I think whatever at the time it was like 17,000. So I'll promote to them. So I say, like, if you've got it, flaunt it. So like everyone has different, social proof levers they can pull. And I was like, I had the co-founder of Pixar and P90X and some of the people you mentioned. So I just mentioned like, I am a credible person here. Right. And so it was one sentence. So it's not super long. And he responds, within 10 minutes, here's my assistant's email. Let's book a time. Right. That went from, I didn't know him. My guest didn't know him. Just adding, my point going back to, I just look at how do I add value to them. I could add value by buying their book. I add value by buying their book and then posting on social media. Even if I had like 100 people that I was connected with, posting on social media saying, hey, I just bought this book. It's awesome. Tagging them in it and helping them sell more books. And by the way, with this whole process, I'm not expecting anything in return. Like, I'm not like, I hope it wasn't even necessarily my intention to message him and say, oh, I want to have him on the podcast. That's why I'm messaging him. I just was genuinely appreciative for the book he put out. So that's an example of didn't know the person, right? My guest mentioned him. That's how I got the co-founder of Electronic Arts on my podcast, right? That person, my guest, when I asked who his mentor was, he mentioned the person. And Electronic Arts, I think, is like whatever it is, a $3-4 billion company at this point. And he mentioned the person as one of his mentors. Okay. And so I just asked, I said, hey, do you think they'd be up for coming on the podcast? Right. Now, I didn't have a connection. And this is not someone I knew ahead of time either. Right.
Yeah.
On the other front, like just straight cold email front. Okay. People are like, how'd you get the co-founder of Pixar on? Okay. And my answer was, I just emailed them. Okay. Every 6 months for 9 years. Okay. But with that one, it almost became funny because I was reading Walter Isaacson's book about Steve Jobs. Okay. I was listening to it. I don't read really, but, and they mentioned Alvin Ray Smith as the co-founder of Pixar. And I'm like, I've never heard of Alvin Ray Smith. I've heard of Ed Catmull. And so I'm thinking, who's Alvin Ray Smith? Like, he's not talked about or anything. And so I start just researching and I find him and, I just found his email online. It's not hard to find people's emails. And I just messaged him that question. I'm like, why does no one talk about you? I'm listening to, Walter Isaacson's book. You're mentioning it, but people don't talk about you. Like, why?
Yeah.
And he responded and we just communicated back and forth. And I go, I'd love to tell your side of the story on the podcast. And he said, Jeremy, I'll come on, no problem, as soon as my book comes out. Okay. My book should be out in 6 months. Okay, cool. I'll set a reminder. I'm going to message you in 6 months. I messaged him in 6 months. Jeremy, I think it's going to be another 6 months. It's not ready yet. Well, fast forward 9 years. I think it was 9 years. I'm almost positive. And it became this running joke, Kurt, like, okay, do you really have a book? Or are you just putting me off? But eventually, he came on. So it was just being personal and real and engaging with people and trying to give to them. And it starts with people I knew, usually first.
If you're listening to this show, it's probably because you understand something most people don't. Marketing to Liberty spenders isn't just about ads or tactics, it's about trust. And in the real world, trust moves through relationships. And that's why private introductions and deal flow are such a core part of what we do.
So FastPass is a private introduction and deal flow network for Christian and conservative leaders who already have influence and want to scale fast. It's not open networking, it's intentional introductions between people who already share alignment. We've seen one client land a $25,000 opportunity from a single introduction. Another told us that FastPass has become his largest source of referrals, not because of volume, but because of fit. And yet another closed her equity round at a key moment just due to the right introduction.
When you book a one-to-one consult with us, we're not handing you a list or making big promises. Instead, we're having a real conversation about what you're building, who you want to meet, and whether FastPass makes sense for this season for you. So no pressure, no hustle, and no awkward pitch from us.
Yeah. If you're ready to grow through relationships instead of forcing everything on your own, head to libertyspenders.com/FastPass and book a one-to-one consult with us.
In worst case, you leave with clarity. Best case, the right introductions change the trajectory of what you're building.
Okay, back to the episode.
I think it's interesting, though, to explore why you would have a podcast like this and why you recommend other people do it as well. So you've had these great guests on. What's the outcome you're looking for?
Yeah.
And as other businesses think, well, maybe I should do this, what should they be looking for?
That's a great question. And I say whatever goal someone has in their business or life can be accomplished with a podcast, right? And so, for instance, there's a professional development reason, right? There's a great for referral strategic partners, developing relationships reason. There's good for clients reason to profile current clients, past clients. It's good for potential clients as well. And it's good for content, SEO, and all that thing for a business as well. But when I think of, I would do it if no one listened, okay? From a professional development reason alone, okay? So like, for instance, if I'm trying to learn about sales or negotiation, I can go out and learn that, but I could also have the top negotiators in the world on my podcast and ask them what questions I want. Or maybe if I can't get in the world, maybe in my state or something like that. So when I listen, someone recommended Never Split the Difference by Chris Weisz. And so I have to listen to it. I'm like, this person would be incredible. Okay. Like I started telling everyone to get the book. I tried to just deliver value. And then, even people are like, well, what if I don't have a big audience, Kurt, right? It's like, who cares? Like when you came on my podcast, I don't know if you knew who was listening or not, but like my goal is to just deliver value to you. So I'm like, you know what? I think who can I introduce to Kurt that would be helpful for him and helpful for the other person? I'm like, oh, Paul Bigham, maybe they'll collaborate. They're in the same similar type of stuff. So I'm thinking, who do I introduce Kurt to as a high level connection that will help him, right? And same thing with Chris Weisz. Like I had him on. I get to ask from a professional development standpoint. I could ask any question I want and really learn from the source. But two, how do I deliver value to him? I realized he was coming through Chicago in a speaking engagement. I'm in Chicago. And it happened that a group of entrepreneurs were getting together for a dinner. And they were all high-level entrepreneurs. And Brian Kurtz, shout out to Brian Kurtz. I don't know if you know Brian. He wrote Over Deliver. He was putting together like a small dinner. And I go, do you mind if I bring Chris Weisz to the dinner? He's actually coming in at the same time. And so I got to bring Chris into this group of 10 high level entrepreneurs. And by the way, we just met. So he didn't know me, but I was let me help and bring you in. And one of the person was like a super fan. He's like, I bought 200 of your books. One of the people in the room, I bought 200 of your books. I give them out to everyone. So just delivering value there. But back to your question is professional development. Like if I want to learn about something, I can go. I was watching Netflix at one point about, there was a health and longevity special. Okay. And I was just sitting in bed and it was like about longevity and I geek out on health stuff. And so I'm like, as I'm watching, I'm like, oh, these two people seem great. And I'm finding their email as I'm watching the show on Netflix, messaging them and saying, hey, I've had other health people on. Do you want to come on? And I personally just wanted to learn about what I can do from like a health and longevity perspective. So there's that. Also, obviously, from a referral partnership perspective, I like to profile my partners that I like refer to and believe in and create marketing assets for them. It could be current or past clients. So I get to profile them and, just deliver value to them. Also, Kurt, they'll probably say some nice things about me. So that doesn't hurt on there. And or potential client. Someone's like, Jeremy, I'm thinking of working with you. And if I'm doing a series, like I do a SaaS series, a software series, I do a kind of a food and beverage series. I have, a top agency series. So if I'm doing one of these series, I'm like, listen, I know you're thinking of working with us, but why don't we just get to know each other and come on, I can share with the world what you're working on. So I've even had people from like a hiring perspective. So like, they're like, Jeremy, I'm full. We don't need any more business. Well, what's your biggest problem? Well, we need to hire more staff. Oh, well, who refers you staff or where do you get staff? Oh, we get them from the university professors in engineering. Have you had any of them on your podcast? And then they can refer you more great candidates potentially. So it kind of goes back into what the goal is. And then people are like, well, what if I'm not famous? I don't have a following. You know, the ones that we run, no one's heard of, Kurt, because it could be a waste management podcast. Okay.
Right,
and they're just trying to connect with municipalities, right? They just want to be known to a very small group of people. They don't care about if they get 1 million downloads or anything like that. It's more about the relationships. And so that's kind of how I think about the benefits, right? And obviously there's content in SEO. So I'll have someone searching for a guest on Google and my podcast comes up like 3 results on the first page of Google, right? Because I have a separate blog post on my website, Inspired Insider. It goes on YouTube. So that shows up. And then, you know, it's on one of the podcast channels. So for some people's name, I'm 3 of the first page, 3 search results on the first page. So that happens all the time. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen off the bat, but like I've been doing this for over 15 years. So, and I've been doing about 2 episodes a week for over a decade. So it just adds up.
Yeah. I'm taking some awesome notes because you're inspiring me as a guy who has his own podcast, some stuff I should be doing. And you tell people it's a great way to reach what you call their dream 200. And I think this might be a good chance for a story. How about a client maybe who really you feel like did that the best?
Yeah.
And made the big difference?
When we start off and we're talking to a company to start, we want to do a strategy, right? And that strategy starts with kind of the dream, creating your dream 200. And there's 17 categories that we brainstorm under in this dream 200 for someone. Okay. And one example, there was a company, I was actually just texting with him today. And it's a company that it's called Retainer Club. And basically they serve orthodontists, and they're just an easy button for an orthodontist office or dental office to replace someone's retainer, right? Kind of like Dollar Shave Club, except with retainers, because they break and it's a pain for the office. Anyways, it's kind of an innovative model. And so they were trying to connect with these orthodontic offices, right? Because they're great partners. They just supply, you know, the patients directly through their portal and can fulfill with Retainer Club. So when we are brainstorming with them, who are, you know, there's a lot of different types of categories. When I think of categories of the Dream 200, it could be, you know, practice management groups in that industry, or consultants in the industry, or trade associations in the industry, people who run conferences in the industry. There's a lot of different types of categories, but this one in particular, we brainstormed. It doesn't have to be someone that they don't know either, right? So they knew this person, and they ran a practice management group for orthodontists. Not shockingly, right? There's a pool. Like maybe they have, hundreds of orthodontists in their group. And so we're like, they'd talked to them before and in conversation about their business or whatever. And the conversation, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, probably never, Kurt, but they went dark. All right. So they didn't respond. And it'd been like 6 months. And I go, listen, why don't just send an email to them and get some suggestions. Maybe they have some suggestions of guests for the podcast, right? Obviously, you can ask them to be on the podcast, but maybe they know orthodontists. If you want to have those people on, ask them for a suggestion. This is before, by the way, they launched the podcast, because people think, well, download, subscribe. This is before they launched the podcast. This is before they did their first interview of the podcast. Wow. Okay. So nothing's been launched at this point. All right. And so they send a message out just saying, hey, like, obviously we're launching the podcast. Do you have suggestions? The person didn't even respond to their question. By the way, they'd gone dark for 6 months. After 45 minutes, they responded to this email and said, oh, you know what? They didn't even respond like, oh yeah, I have a guest for you. They responded, you know what? I have an actual referral for your business. Because it was just a reminder that they existed. It was a reminder what they did. I actually have a referral for your business of someone in my group. That person was $100,000 in recurring revenue for that business. Okay. And I don't even remember if the person ended up coming on the podcast, like the actual person they reached out to, or the person that they recommended. But the point is, it's just you're in communication with those people. And so, it's just about looking at delivering value to them or their network, right? And so they struck up the conversation. They know what they did. They didn't have to be like, hey, you should use me. They were just sending them a message.
I like it about how the idea, I was sharing with you my perception from the outside looking in 2 years ago before we started our podcast is the only reason you would ever do a podcast is if you wanted to monetize it with advertising dollars and be a big name. And it was first you guys and then some others I ran into who said, hey, this could be a great relationship builder. You can turn this into a business thing. And I have found that to be true.
Yeah.
And having been on your podcast, what I thought was unique was all the little touch points that came along with it. You did more than just, okay, I'm going to interview Kurt. You turned the episode into real sort of business touch points. There was, led to an introduction. You had connected with me on LinkedIn and we chatted there some and you were great about my website was up during the episode. And then I know you have a whole gifting thing that you do. So how do you take a podcast episode and turn it into a real business win? What's those little extra secret sauce things that are helpful? Yeah,
good question. So when we meet as a team, we have pipeline meetings, right? Mm-hmm. 3 days a week. And, people, I don't know what people use out there. We've used Trello at one point, Pipedrive at one point. Right now we use Active Campaign. There's like a deals function because we like to send emails from there too. But, we have referral pipeline and then potential client pipeline. And so the pipeline is not just, hey, I think, it goes both ways. I think we could refer people to Kurt. He could maybe refer people to us. But the columns aren't moving someone through the pipeline necessarily. We kind of call it columns of giving. And each column is something, how do we give to this person, right? So let's say oh, Kurt, he's awesome. Have I had him on my podcast yet? Yes. Did I create a social media post about him yet? Yes. Did we feature him in our physical newsletter yet? Did I make an introduction for him? Did we send him a gift? So all those things are there. And by the way, it's all just, what can I do for you? It's not about what can I get per se, but we have all these columns, how do we give to people, right? And for me, I've found no better way than to have someone on my podcast because that puts them into a system of, okay, I know when I have them on my podcast, I know in a couple weeks, we're going to create a full blog post out of it, YouTube, across the podcast channels. I know in a month from then, we're going to create a snippet and post across social. I know in 6 months, I'm going to post another snippet. Sorry to ruin the surprise, Kurt, but I'm going to post another snippet about them. All of this is not about me, by the way. Mm-hmm. And it's all about the other company. It's a marketing asset they can keep using. And then how do I introduce them to someone that would be helpful for them? So when we meet, it's just looking at those columns to see, what can I do for this person? Mm-hmm. Right. And kind of my criteria, Kurt's if we did this for everyone, we would, it would drain all of our energy and time. So we kind of I think of the book Give and Take by Adam Grant. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know if you've listened to it before, but it's it talks about givers, takers, and matchers. And givers are the least successful and givers are also the most successful. And the least successful ones are because they focus all their time and energy on maybe not great relationships. So I always look at, I want to give to the givers. So if I find a giver, then I'm cool. I'm cool. So I'm not doing this for everyone necessarily. If I'm oh, this person's a good person, I really like what they're about, and they're a true giver too, then I'm gonna go all out for them. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like how it creates these extra touch points. It makes it more of a you can sort of make an argument in your mind about how we're keeping these relationships warm, which are great for for business as well as just doing good in the world. So I think it's interesting that you ended up here, but you started as a chiropractor. So how did you go from, I'm doing adjustments one day and the next day I have a podcast. How did that go? Yeah. So like I mentioned, my background's in biochemistry as a chiropractor, and my dad suffered with really bad neck pain when I was in high school. And so I was I really like health. And I think, so nothing helped him. And he suffered for years. And then finally a chiropractor, after a couple months, he was almost 100% better. And so I went to work in high school for that chiropractor to see if this is what I wanted to do. And I really thought people came in with a frown, left with a smile. And so I ended up doing that right out of college. They don't teach you any business or marketing in college, in chiropractic school, right? And all my classes were science. I took one business 101 class in Madison. Okay. And so I was like, when I got out of school, I was like, I need to go and learn more about this stuff. So I was going to business and marketing and internet conferences. This is like 2006, 7-ish. And I stumbled across this thing. At the time, they weren't even calling it podcasting. It was like interviewing people and publishing it online. Right. And just like I mentioned, of all the benefits from content and professional development and referral, I was like, this is the best thing ever. I geek out on talking to entrepreneurs and founders and hearing their story and learning from them. And so like, I took to it and started doing it. And then fast forward, like people, it was a small community. We're talking like 2007, 8.
Yeah.
And people were reaching out to me saying, hey, like, I see you're doing this. Can you help me? Right. I'm running a full-time chiropractic business, right? I have a full office, massage therapist, office managers. And I'm like, I have a hard time saying no. Kurt, so I was like, sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, can I pay you? I'm like, I was like, sure, whatever. Like, it wasn't about the money. I was just happy to help, And so I started helping these people launch and run their podcasts, and slowly people were like referring people to me. And at that time, because I was running the full practice, I had built a virtual team because I literally was seeing patients. So I just wanted to show up, do the interview, and not do anything else outside of that because I couldn't. So I had built up this virtual team. So that's how it started. So it just turned into a separate business on accident of just people referring people to me. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, this is getting overwhelming. This is a lot. And so eventually, I sold my chiropractic business and focused on Rise 25 and, what we do, helping people launch run podcasts and send gifts full time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really interesting evolution. And of course, you're fascinated with these entrepreneurs and what you're learning. And I mean, you've been doing this for what, 15 years, did you say?
Since probably, I think, 2008-ish.
Yeah. So you've interviewed a bunch of people. What's the most recurring piece of advice you feel like you've heard from folks that you kind of take back and say, you know what, if I could share this one thing or these two things, here's what it would be?
I mean, what surprises me, it still surprises me, is like these uber successful people and how many failures they had along the way. And it wasn't like this straight path, right? Because I always see them, the co-founder of Pixar or Atari or RXBAR or whoever. It's like always I visualize like, up and to the right. It's just like growth.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is how many failures, how many setbacks, like I remember the Einstein bagels. Noah Alper. He grew a chain. He sold it to Einstein Bagels, I think, for, I don't remember, like $100 million or something. A chain of Noah's Bagels to Einstein Bagels. And I remember him saying, and you'll appreciate this, Jeremy, my business before that was like I was selling religious tchotchkes out of the back of my car. Like that's what I was doing. And then my brother wanted to start this bagel shop, and I'm like, okay. And that's what he was doing before, trying to make ends meet. And P90X founder Tony Horton, I remember when he was starting it, I think, who knows, they've sold billions of CDs or DVDs or whatever. I don't know at this point. At the time, I think they had sold over 500 million worth. He said, Jeremy, when I had this dream of doing fitness. I drove from, I think it was Pittsburgh to California. When I got there, I had no money and I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I was like, what'd you do? He's like, well, I made my food and rent money by street miming. And I'm like, seriously? Wow. And I asked him on the interview, I'm like, show me. And he actually did his like street mime routine, but that's how he made his food and rent money. a lot of they came from humble beginnings and started from scratch and had to hustle and scrape, to get to where they are. And so there were a lot of setbacks, failures, or just tough times in the process,
Yeah.
Even the founder of Atari, who also founded Chuck E. Cheese, he was Steve Jobs' mentor. He talks about how at one point, I don't know if he said they ran out of money or something. And so he decided to take his family on a trip around the world. They thought it was the best thing ever. But what they didn't realize is that they were just staying at friends' houses along the way. So it didn't cost them anything.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the money to stay at these like nice hotels or whatever. And so it was just hustling and making it happen. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's
so it's inspiring for me because like I see, they're uber successful, but it's like they had the same ups and downs as anyone else,
Yep. Yeah. I had a successful business person say to me once, and I didn't appreciate it till much later. He says, I never want to go into business with somebody unless they've had a big failure or two in their business.
Right.
Because then they have the proper humility. They've been there. They've done it. The people who say they've never lost money are the most dangerous.
There was only one, Kurt, out of thousands that was like instant success. Okay. Only one that I can remember. The rest were just like all over the place. It was a founder of Big League Chew.
Yeah.
And he was in the bullpen, as a minor league player, came up with this. He didn't want tobacco, obviously being not that healthy. So he came up with this idea of shredded gum. And the reason, it was an interesting lesson for me because what he did and why it was instant, it was like, he said it was lightning in a pouch from a business perspective. That's what he said. And the reason is because he licensed it. So he didn't have to do the operations, the distribution, the sales. He came with this idea. I don't remember what he had a lawyer who patented it or whatever it was. And I think Wrigley took it over. And I think the first year they sold like 1 million pouches and he get a royalty on them.
Wow.
So that was the only one I can remember that was just instantaneous. Yeah. There was no like super lows or whatever it is. And he was smart, right? And just partnered with someone who had all the other pieces in place. So,
yeah, I like it. Very powerful. So for a lot of my listeners are faith friendly business owners, conservative values. That's something they like to talk about. I want to kind of help them picture what it might be like. How could they use podcasting? How could they maybe, sprinkle their faith or values into it? How could they look at it? It might be a little unique.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it goes back into what their goals are. And then, who are they trying to connect with from a partnership perspective, from a client perspective, from a professional development perspective. And then I would just sway it if someone has certain people they respect, like if they respect, this company, I really respect their values and they're also kind of faith-based, then profile those companies and people who share those values, right? So you get to it is a common value. But it's still kind of the premise of, what's the goals of the business, right? Overlapped with what their values are, right? So if someone, for instance, we have a client who is food and beverage, right? And they want mission-driven food and beverage companies, right? I mean, they could serve any food and beverage company if they wanted, but what they do is they want to really focus on mission-driven. So maybe a lot of them are B corporations who are already kind of past that litmus test of they've jumped through the hoops of having the certain mission-based values that they want. So in that case, they just kind of choose the companies they want to profile. Same thing with who they want to work with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. And I I know part of what you do is
And you talk about
launch...
this, Kurt, in your book too.
Yes.
I mean, you talk about the different companies that you share values with, and you profile those companies in your book.
Yeah. Yeah. And a part of what you guys do is help people launch podcasts and help take away some of the pain for people who are thinking about one or, might be preparing. What's the most common mistake you see people make when they're just getting started?
There's a couple common mistakes I see. One is focusing on the wrong things, right? And people really focus on, what am I going to name? They'll spend I don't even know. Certain things will hold them back from starting, right? I'm not saying it's wrong, and I'm not saying it's not legitimate, but, they'll think, what mic do I use? What tech do I use? What do I name my show? Like all these things. Same thing I've seen business owners be like, well, I need a business card. I need a website. Like, you actually don't need those things. I actually started my podcast in the first 6 months. Kurt, I had no name of the podcast. Okay. I just wanted to get it started. So people would come on, I'd be like, welcome to the podcast. There was zero name. I bought my name as a domain, like jeremyweisz.com. And I'm like, eventually I'll figure out what I want to, name it. And I just didn't want that to stop me. So certain things that the most important is just to build great relationships. The other thing people mistake is just the wrong mindset I see is, you mentioned this before about focusing on download subscribers and vanity metrics as opposed to real relationships. And that's kind of what I focus on, just real relationships. I'm not worried about how am I going to be, someone going to be the next like Joe Rogan, or are you going to monetize it through sponsorships or whatever it is? Because also the people we work with, I have to say, we don't do true crime podcasts or comedy podcasts or sports podcasts. We're really doing podcasts for people of actual businesses. And so if they have an actual business, they have a monetization, model that could work as opposed to trying to get sponsorships, which is really difficult to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So focusing on those things holds people back, I have found. Listen, a mic, you can get a USB mic that plugs in the back of your computer for $100 on Amazon. I have a Blue Yeti. There's an ATR 2100 or whatever. Like, you can literally get one for $100, $150. So that's it.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. We like to ask all of our guests the same 3 questions at the end in what we call our lightning round. The idea is 90 seconds on 3 different things. First one is, hopefully a few decades from now, you're looking back on your life, and how would you judge that you've had a life well lived?
It's a hard question. I mean, I look at it as viewed as a giver and being helped, when people, from a legacy perspective, obviously my kids, making sure that they also embody those same values of being nice and a giver to people. Because I think that has that ripple effect throughout. So anyone hopefully I touch feels that way and is able to do the same.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Totally different. 90 seconds on any topic that's been interesting you lately. Something that's taking you down the rabbit hole. Maybe it's a hobby you've got, spiritual insight, good book, sports team you want to sing the praises of. What's got you?
I mean, I always geek out on good books. I mean, I work out 7 days a week, and usually I'm listening to an audiobook on 2 times speed. So I finish a lot of audiobooks a week, and I'm looking down here, some of my favorites. Influenced by Robert Cialdini. He's got a new expanded version that I just listened to. Obviously, the old version is good as well. I try and listen to 4 Agreements every year. If you've heard of that. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is one of my top ones. So I'm always looking at what just gives me the edge in life or business. And so, I mean, I can go on and on. There's so many good ones out there. I mean, I listen to your book also. And I look at authors like Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference. Yes. So, I mean, I think I have over 600 books in my Audible. So, those are just a few off the top of my head.
Yeah, those are great. And I definitely recommend Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. I picked it up last year. I couldn't believe I hadn't read it already. And I knew how good a book it was, how influential it was, because I'd heard a lot of his content before in other places. People
100%.
Repurposing it. So really awesome. And then I like to give everyone a chance. If you assumed no one in the audience has heard anything except this, right? What's your best 90 seconds for Rise 25? Who are you? What do you do? Who should be talking to you? How do they find you?
Well, one, Inspired Insider is my podcast, inspiredinsider.com. There's a great interview with Kurt, so you could check it out. Okay. And other great people. Everything's free. Everything I talk about podcasting is on there as a free episode, like top resources, tools, software, whatever, how to launch it. We give away everything for free on there. If you have questions about, we help people connect their dream relationships with launching and running and doing the strategy with your podcast. We get people on podcasts, and we also do a gifting program for companies where we'll send a campaign of gifts to someone's referral partners or clients. So those are the things that we do to help overall build amazing relationships.
Yeah.
And that's at rise25.com if people want to check it out.
That's awesome. Well, this has been great. So folks, if you want to find Jeremy, his podcast is at inspiredinsider.com. And if you want to learn about starting your own podcast as a business owner, check out rise25.com. It's been awesome having you on.
It's been a pleasure and an honor. Thanks, Kurt.
And for those of you listening, I know it's a big deal to give us of your time. So we appreciate you. Please like and subscribe so more people can find us. And if you want to learn a little bit more about what we're up to and about our Liberty Business Alliance, check us out at libertyspenders.com. And until next time,